He's lying there. The room is quiet. The only sound is her breathing, slow, peaceful, but he's awake. Not because something went wrong, not because he's unsatisfied. He just feels empty. Moments ago, he was full of energy, connection, life. Now he feels drained. And somewhere under that emptiness, there's something heavier. Shame. Why does this happen? Why do so many men feel guilt, regret, or even disgust after sex, even when nothing bad happened? Why does something natural and intimate leave a man feeling wrong? It's not something most men talk about, but this silent feeling, that wave of guilt that follows pleasure, tells us something deep about what it means to be a man in today's world. Inside the male brain, right after orgasm, chemistry shifts instantly. Dopamine, the excitement chemical, drops sharply. Prolactin floods the system, signaling that the chase is over. And oxytocin, the bonding hormone, briefly rises before it fades. This sudden change creates a crash, not just tiredness, a kind of hollow calm. Women, on average, ride a longer oxytocin wave. They feel warmth, closeness. Men, on the other hand, hit a wall. Their brain says, "You're done." That's biology. It explains the silence, the distance, the quiet, but it doesn't explain the guilt. Because guilt isn't born in the body, it's born in the mind. From a young age, boys are taught that their desire is dangerous. Control yourself. Don't be dirty. Real men don't think like that. Even when no one says it out loud, the message is there. In school and religion, in jokes. Desire becomes something to hide. Pleasure becomes something to feel guilty about. So by the time a boy becomes a man, sex isn't just an act. It's a test of control, a test of worth, a test of whether he's good or bad. And when that wave of vulnerability hits after sex, the inner critic wakes up. It whispers, "You shouldn't have done that," even when it was consensual, even when it was love. For many men, guilt isn't about doing something wrong. It's about being seen. Brené Brown says, "Guilt says I did something bad. Shame says I am bad," and that's exactly what happens. After sex, a man doesn't just feel like he did something wrong, he feels like he is something wrong. Because sex, for all its noise, ends in silence. And in that silence, masks fall off. For a moment, the man who's always been in control, strong, certain, decisive, is just a body breathing next to another body. He's not performing, he's not proving anything. He's simply there, human. That nakedness, physical and emotional, can feel unbearable. Because for someone taught that control equals safety, vulnerability feels like danger. So his mind does what it's trained to do. It protects him with shame. Shame becomes armor. If I feel bad, I can feel in control again. If I blame myself, maybe I don't have to feel weak. But that armor comes with a price. It kills the intimacy it's meant to protect. Modern culture makes it worse. Porn, media, conversations. They all tell men that sex is about performance. You must last long, satisfy her, dominate, control. You must be the perfect lover. So when the act is over, and he feels tenderness or stillness instead of power, he doesn't recognize himself. He's been trained to think a real man doesn't feel emotional after sex. He rolls over, goes quiet, or feels wrong for feeling anything. The culture that tells men to be good in bed also punishes them for feeling human afterwards. That's the paradox. Evolution adds its own twist. Thousands of years ago, detachment after sex helped survival. Move on, spread your genes. But modern men don't live in caves. They fall in love. They build bonds. They crave connection. So when the body says detach, but the heart says stay, a storm begins inside. Confusion turns into guilt. And behind all this biology and culture, there's the shadow of morality, religion, tradition, shame passed through generations. Men were told that even thinking about sex was impure. That desire was sinful. So they grew up splitting themselves in two, the holy self and the sexual self. Even if they reject those beliefs intellectually, emotionally, they still carry them. A whisper from childhood remains. You've done something unclean. This is how moral programming becomes emotional residue. You don't believe it, but you still feel it. And under all that, beneath the hormones and history, lies fear. Because real intimacy isn't just physical closeness. It's being seen. To be truly seen means to surrender control. And for many men, that's terrifying. They can be naked physically, but emotionally, that's much harder. Once someone sees who you are, you can't hide behind the mask anymore. You can't perform your way back to safety. So when the body relaxes and the defenses drop, the real self comes out. And for a man who's never been allowed to be that self, it feels like falling. Shame is the attempt to grab onto something while falling. It's easy to assume this happens only after casual encounters, but often it's the opposite. When a man sleeps with someone he truly loves, the shame can feel even stronger, because closeness means exposure, and exposure means risk. The more he cares, the more vulnerable he becomes, and the more vulnerable he feels, the louder the shame gets. He's not ashamed of the act. He's ashamed of being seen too closely. Pornography magnifies all of this. It rewires the male brain to expect pleasure without vulnerability, to equate control with confidence, domination with worth. So when real intimacy happens, slow, emotional, imperfect, his brain doesn't know what to do. It says, this isn't power. This isn't what sex is supposed to feel like. And so he feels wrong. The shame that follows isn't about sex. It's about failing to live up to a fantasy of masculinity that never existed. Men today are trapped between two forces, a culture that says, don't be soft, and a soul that craves connection. They swing between emotional distance and emotional dependence, never finding balance. They either avoid intimacy altogether or drown in it and feel ashamed afterwards. Both come from the same wound, the belief that strength and tenderness cannot coexist, but they can. And that's where healing begins. Healing starts with awareness, to name the feeling, to say, yes, I feel shame, and that's okay. Because once shame is spoken, it loses its grip. It thrives in silence. Then comes understanding, knowing that emptiness after sex is natural. Your body is just resetting. It's not proof that you're broken. And finally, connection, talking about it. Sharing it with someone safe. Learning that vulnerability doesn't kill attraction, it deepens it. Men have to learn to forgive themselves for being human, for feeling, for caring, for wanting closeness. Maybe the tragedy isn't that men feel shame after sex. Maybe it's that they feel they can't talk about it, so they bury it. And the more they hide it, the more they start believing it's who they are. But shame isn't truth. It's just an echo of an old belief that a man must choose between strength and softness. The truth is, real strength includes softness. Real masculinity includes tenderness. Sex doesn't have to end in silence or guilt. It can end in peace, in honesty, in two people breathing, without masks, without judgment. Men don't need to be less sexual. They just need to feel safe being human, even after sex, because shame dies the moment it's spoken in a safe place. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more.